Hello, everyone. This is Rachel Grant, sexual abuse recovery coach, and I am here tonight with my special guest, Marna Schwartz, as we talk about the 3 secrets for everyday sexy. I am super excited to have Marna here sharing with you these 3 secrets. I've been wondering what they are myself, so can't wait to learn that with you. And if you don't know who I am, I work with survivors of childhood sexual abuse who are basically sick and tired of feeling broken and unfixable and are ready to let go of the pain of abuse and move on with their lives. So tonight I'm going to tell you a little bit about Marna and how we got connected, and then she's going to share with us how to feel more authentically sexy, confident, and connected with your sensuality. So Marna and I, we met through a friend of a friend, and, had a little sit down, and we're just chatting about some of our goals in working with women and the difference that we were really wanting to see. And there's, some crossover, of course, between the work that I do with survivors of sexual abuse and the work she does around sexual empowerment. And so we connected immediately on that. And mostly what I really got about Marna right away was that she was intent on, making sure that women felt comfortable, whole, empowered, and was really coming at it from a very fun, energized, no apologies kind of a place. And I just love that about her. And, Marna is actually an expert in holistic nutrition, yoga, and sensuality, and she works with individuals, couples, and groups to really optimize wellness, communication, joy. She's been teaching movement for over 20 years and is also certified as a yoga instructor. And she's a holistic health counselor at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, Integrated Nutrition. And, she's also an accomplished Reiki and subtle energy practitioner. So lots of skills, lots of tools that she's bringing from the table. And she just really draws from all of that, plus her wealth of experiences and insights into these cohesive offerings that, at the end of the day, really support clients in just living more fully vital lives. And so you're going to get to know her tonight, and you're going to get to know more about her practice and the work that she does with individuals in private sessions and couples and families. She also does events and workshops and online courses, so much stuff. And, she's really passionate about helping women feel confident and more authentically sexy. So you're in for a real treat tonight, and really glad that you're here with us. So kick back, relax, and do be jotting down any questions or thoughts or comments that are coming up for you as you're listening, because we will save some time at the end of our call tonight for Q&A. So there'll be an opportunity to text those questions or to call in or to get on the line live with Marna. So keep that in mind as we go along here. So Marna, welcome.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Hi, Rachel.
Hey. So just to get us going tonight, I'd love to know how you ended up here, in this world of talking about sensuality and, working around a topic that, maybe some people might shy a little away from or have a hard time discussing. How did you find your way to where you are today?
That is a really, really great question. Well, I think, part of what I set out to, learn and discover was what would give me the tools and skills for giving me what I, wanted to have in my life, the things, the kind of experiences I wanted to have. Like right now in my life, I feel a lot of positivity around sensuality. I feel a lot of access. I feel like I have a lot of love in my life. I feel a lot of permission to ask for what I want and to receive it. And it wasn't always that way. It was there was a time in my life that, I felt really successful in my life in a lot of ways. I had graduated college cum laude. I had gone to grad school. I had, a good job. I had good friends. I was dating a nice guy. And yet there was this feeling in me wow, there's something missing. And it was kind of like a hunger, or like a thermostat that was, that could go up to 100 degrees, but had only gone up to 60 or something. I knew there was more, and that mostly became apparent in like, my intimacy and my sensual experiences that I shared with this wonderful man that I was dating at the time. But it never felt full. It never felt real. It never felt like when you watch those movies and you see the fireworks and everything happening, and I,
sure.
It wasn't that. And I was like, well, that might not be realistic, but this is nowhere near that. And I knew for myself, like, well, there's something akin to fireworks in me because I catch glimpses of it sometimes.
Uh-huh.
And I want more. I want more of that. How do I, there wasn't really any access. There wasn't really any, like, oh, this is how I have more. There was no obvious route from A to B about how to have that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I began to look for clues. And for me, clues looked like people that I really admired and appreciated. And, two of the celebrities that I really, like, appreciated, like, kind of how they were or how they presented themselves were Madonna and Sting. And part of what it was like, wow, they're so, like, just, like, real, and they seem really comfortable with their, like, sensuality, and, like, what is that, and how can I have that, and, like, one of the common things I've, discovered between them was conversations about yoga, something about sensuality and tantra, and I was like, I have to learn more about this tantra thing. So I set about to learn more, and I discovered great sex-positive stores that had books. And I started looking for books that appealed to me, and I started reading about sensuality. And it was really the first time that I had access to the conversation about sensuality. Like, wow, people actually talk about this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And it wasn't until I realized that there was actually, like, a skill set involved that I could learn that I really felt, like, excited and like, wow, I could have that.
Mm-hmm.
So I set about just learning more and learning, taking steps to learn as much as I could. Also, learned more about yoga because that just seemed like something that helped me feel more and more in my body and positive and healthy. And like you mentioned, I attended the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, where I learned all about, like, vitality and health. And believe it or not, it's all really interrelated. Like, oh, when the energy in me moves, I can feel this kind of ecstatic bliss. So how do I create skills and tools for myself to have that more often? And when I want to, and not just leave it to, like, when the stars align in a certain way, everything happens just right, maybe I'll have that. It's like, well, what can I do to help that happen sort of by my desire and my choice?
Yeah. I love that. And, certainly for a lot of my clients, there is a disconnect, from their bodies, from being able to experience intimacy, sexuality, sensuality. And so I'm really looking forward to some of the things that you've discovered in your journey that have made a difference for you, that have led you to feel that connection and to be able to tap into that, bliss and that energy that you're describing. So I'm dying to know. I know everyone who's listening is dying to know, what's the first secret? Do tell.
Drum roll. The first secret for Everyday Sexy is that boundaries create freedom. Boundaries create freedom. And what I mean by that is, in any moment that you want to feel sensual, that you want to feel turned on or excited or present in your body, especially with somebody else, ask yourself the question, do I feel safe? And if the answer is anything but yes, start there. Like, okay, well, in that case, what do I need for myself in order to feel safe? And I think that I've heard I don't know if it was a study or an article or something, but I've heard it said that when there's a playground with a fence around it, the kids will go crazy, like all around the playground, all around the space, and have lots of kind of wild fun because they're sort of enclosed, right? They have this bubble of protection. They know how far they can go. They can't go past that. Whatever ball they're throwing can't go past that. It's a container. And that when there's a playground without a fence around it, that there's a different attitude. There's a different approach. The kids are more likely to stay to the center of the playground. They're less likely to be, running around the edges quite so much.
I like that.
That there's a certain amount of freedom that comes with actually having a boundary.
Got it. Yeah.
So I'm going to share a couple. Oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
So I'm going to share a couple different things. First, I'd like to just invite everybody to get a sense, like a felt sense, for what safety actually is or feels like for you. Would that be okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, great. So everybody listening, if you're someplace where you can close your eyes, go ahead, safely, go ahead and do that. And just do a scan of your body. Notice how you feel in your body. Notice your breath. Notice any sensations in your body. Maybe your feet on the floor, the fabric of your socks, the air against your skin. Just notice how you feel. And now take a moment and remember for yourself, when is the last time that you felt safe? And bring that to mind. And see what you feel in your body. If you open yourself to your body feeling some of the sensations that can go along with that, what are those? What do you notice? And keep breathing as you do this. It's easy to stop breathing sometimes, just to forget. Just come back to the breath. And now if it feels okay for you to do so, take a moment and bring to mind some time in your life when you felt other than safe, when you felt less than safe. You don't have to fully go into it, but just bring it to mind a little bit and notice how your body might shift. Maybe it doesn't, but maybe it does. And what are the qualities of your sensation in this moment? Keep breathing. Notice if your back feels the same, your muscles, your belly, your breath. Notice what may or may not change. And now take another moment and just come back to the breath here and now. And one more time, just to kind of reset, bring to mind that safe moment, that setting, that context where you felt just really a lot of safety. And notice what happens in your body. What do you feel? What do you notice? When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Come back to here and now. If you're at home listening and want to make a few notes for yourself about what that was like for you, that can be a good way to kind of get to know yourself better. All right. So, Rachel, how was that for you?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I can imagine having done this exercise years ago, all of the trembling and all of the fears that would have popped up, for me, and the tension that I, that I held in my body. Yeah, I think it's really nice to be able to just go in and really look at what's sitting there for you, what's coming up. And I think a lot of times just being able to name those fears and get connected to safety, not safety, what it's like, what it's not like. I'm curious, when you've done this exercise with some of your clients, what are some of the things that you notice? What kinds of what feedback do you get, or what themes or trends do you tend to see?
That's a great question. So one of the more powerful experiences I had, I offered this exercise in one of my workshops, and one of the women began to cry very, very much, and we completed the exercise, and just held the space that it was okay that we were doing the exercise. It was okay that she was crying. There wasn't anything wrong, and nothing that we had to fix. It wasn't
right.
Hysteria. It was just her kind of having this experience. And so when she shared with the group, what she said was she was crying with sadness because she couldn't remember the last time she felt safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was huge. And, what I, offered was, just the challenge or the opportunity to kind of look for creating that for herself in her life. What are the things that would help her to feel safe again? I guess she had a past relationship where, her partner had been the source of a lot of her feeling kind of safe in the world.
Right.
And so without that, she realized there was this missing for herself. So she walked away with a new opportunity to create for herself. So that was exciting.
Right.
Let's see, other women. A lot of the time, people say when they feel safe, their breath is deeper. They feel a sense of kind of contentment in their body, like a settled kind of bodily feeling. And a lot of women, in the not safe exploration, share that their breath has gotten shallow, their muscles feel tight, that they feel nervous, they're fidgety, that they, it's just a whole different sort of sensory field that they enter into. And how you can use this is, in your life, notice okay, is my state right now one where I feel safe or other than safe?
Yeah, and certainly something that I think comes up for my clients, and maybe you see this as well with some of the folks you work with, is sometimes we evaluate incorrectly. We'll see things that are dangerous as safe, and we'll see things that are safe as dangerous, right? There's almost this miswiring, and certainly for folks who have some abuse in their background, being with a partner, even a partner of 20 years who is trusted and has, proven themselves committed and loyal, that to still sit in that space of unsafe, right? That misevaluation of the risk that's involved, right? So being able to really tune into, well, what does it actually look like or feel like for me when I'm safe? And if you don't have that experience or can't create that, to then imagine what it might be like and move towards that is what I hear you saying. Yeah, beautiful. So, and I love this idea that, by creating boundaries that, we are giving ourselves it's like a parameter, which on one hand maybe feels like, oh, well, now I'm limited or I'm boxed in. But on the other hand, it can be a really nice, safe container, and
Absolutely.
even by starting by little small containers, I imagine, some of the clients I work with who are really blocked around sensuality and feeling safe sexually is, let's just start with holding hands. We don't have to go for the whole shebang.
Absolutely.
Make a little playground of holding hands. I love that analogy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
I'm actually really glad that you brought that up, because there's a whole question of like, well, how do I, create my playground?
Right.
And part of how you do that is both with, starting with yourself and then with somebody else, obviously, like if you want to and feel like that's okay, is to define for yourself, like, okay, well, what do I want on my playground? Like one of the exercises I'll have women do is imagine like a box, right, like a square, and that there are things and activities and like choices and things that they want to try go inside the square, and things that like are outside of what's okay go outside the square. So it becomes this little like, playground. And if you feel like, if you're at home and you feel like drawing like a diagram, like a little square for yourself and say, okay, here are some of the things that I want to try and here are some of the things that I'm really not interested in. So if you're in a space in your life where you're like, wow, I want to hold hands, you put holding hands inside the box and like maybe everything else outside the box.
Yes.
And then you can have a conversation, and you can even almost frame it as like a negotiation with someone. And you can say, hey, here's what I would really like. I would really like to hold hands. Will you do this with me? And they may say, yes, absolutely. And they may say, well, I really don't want to hold hands, but maybe we could just gently kind of touch feet or something. Like, they might renegotiate with you, and or they might, there's all kinds of conversations to have in that space once you have the vocabulary and the permission to do so and say, yes, these are the things that I want, these are the things that I don't want.
Right. Yeah, and I think some people get blocked even just around the communication piece. Is there anything that you've noticed for folks who are like, well, I know what I want, but I just can't kind of spit it out of my mouth. Like I can't get to the point where I can actually ask for it or say it. Is there anything? Have you run into that?
I have run into that. One tool that I find really valuable is writing things down as a step for your own exploration, like even making a list. Like if I could want anything, what would it be? And it's like, okay, well, I want to hold hands, and I'd like to do this, and I'd like, and I'd like, gosh, I'd really like to play hide and seek because I think that would be fun, or I'd really, whatever those things are, and just giving yourself a lot of space and permission to let it be anything.
Right.
And you don't have to share it with anybody. You don't have to, you don't have to just kind of create for yourself that permission of like, wow, if I could want anything, what is it?
Yeah, I like that.
And then from that space, what's that?
Oh, I just like that a lot. Yeah, just like step fully into possibilities without any consideration of how you're going to get there or how it might look, but just kind of, looking for what else, what it is you really want. Yeah.
Yeah, and then from that space, I've actually had people I've worked with in couples who maybe have had a hard time in the past sharing what they want, and one of the things that they do is go through. So one option could look like making a list of like, this is what I'd like, and like trading and like reading each other's list. And then the thing that can sometimes be helpful is going through a list that's already made, like something else, like someone else's list, or a list you make up for this purpose of like many different things, and kind of sharing like, wow, I think I'd like that, or I don't think I'd like that, or what are your thoughts about this? And it's nervous, it's edgy, it's I think one of the things that's important to do is have a conversation, beforehand, saying, hey, I really want to talk with you about this, and I feel kind of scared, and then sharing like, well, why do you feel scared? Well, I feel scared you're going to run away screaming, or I feel scared you're going to say no, or I feel scared that, I want this and that's kind of weird and you're going to like make fun of me, or whatever it is.
Whatever's coming up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just name the fear, instead of trying to get around it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
And to really, be picky, be chooseful. Like you want to do this with a partner who really has your back, who you trust, like a very dear friend or a dear one, or a romantic partner, someone that you really trust. You wouldn't want to meet somebody in a bar and be like, hey, want to have this conversation with me? Like I don't recommend that.
Right.
I just be particular, be at choice and
not a good strategy.
Not a good strategy. Not a good strategy.
Nice. So now, we're talking a little bit about some of the struggles that come up, and I know that certainly a lot of the clients I've worked with are facing things like disconnection, getting nervous, getting overstimulated, that they get to the place that we've been talking about, like, okay, I'm going to set my boundary. I'm going to ask for what I want. I'm going to go in. And then they get there, and the system just, goes all wonky, and things start to happen. So is there anything that a person can do in those situations?
Yes. The most helpful tool that I found in these situations, and I've experienced this, like I'll be in a space where I'm, intimate with a partner, and for whatever reason I'm suddenly like overwhelmed or scared or nervous, and it just like not connected. And the important thing in those moments is to notice. First of all, notice it, and let it be okay that that's what's happening. I think a lot of, especially, I want to make him happy. I don't have what he wants. I want to make him happy, so I'm just going to pretend that my system isn't freaking out right now.
Right.
Pull through this moment and hope, which might be a strategy that would work for them or not. Most often, I found that doesn't work for me. And so what I'll do is a strategy I call stillness. And so stillness is, if you imagine like a crying baby, how you would kind of hold a crying baby, like just with this sense of like oh, everything's okay. If you can imagine putting that semantic into your touch, into your way that you're holding like a crying baby, or an upset animal or a friend or dear one, is like just like with this sense of like everything's okay. Everything, it's and not even making the upset wrong or bad. It's not like, oh, shh, don't be upset, right? It's not that energy. It's a very important distinction.
Right.
It's not like, oh, here's some tissue, sop that up. Like that's not okay. But it's like oh. And I think every...
Oh, Marna, I think you got to repeat that last piece there, because it dropped out for me a little bit there.
Oh, sure thing. So a physical experience of stillness, and I think it's a little bit different for every person, every woman, in terms of what that feels like for you, and really only you know. So if you give yourself a moment to be like, okay, if I'm upset or disconnected, how would I want to be held? And to kind of like embody that for yourself, maybe wrap your arms even around yourself and just like take a breath and like create that kind of stillness that you would for like an upset child or a baby, or just like the holding with a lot of space and permission. And so that's something that you can create for yourself, and that's something that you can actually teach your partner.
Nice.
Especially if they're open to learning stuff like that, you can say, and it can be best to talk about it like beforehand.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
there's
hey,
already something that comes up for you.
Yeah, like, hey, sometimes when I'm feeling sensual, I have this kind of thing happen to me, and so I might ask for stillness. And for me, stillness looks and feels like this, and like illustrate for them. Maybe do it to them and show them like, if you could hold me like this when I ask for stillness, that would be awesome. And then they can, do it back and be like, well, is it kind of like this? And you can be like, well, like this, but like maybe, feel your feet more or whatever. It's interesting, the subtle things that go into a connective, body moment.
Sure.
But just to have that tool. And so then when you're in that space and you're like, wow, all this stuff is happening and I'm about to kind of feel overwhelmed or like this is too much and I'm not feeling connected to my partner and like that.
Yes.
You can say, hey, honey, will you please just hold me with this moment?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can create that together, and that's what I've noticed gives me permission, like that space of everything is okay and I'm held, that's where my nervous system kind of rebalances. And from there I can choose what I want. Like, maybe I need to stop, this connection in this moment. Or maybe, I need to, maybe I really want him to touch me this way, or maybe I really want to touch him that way. Or it kind of creates a different, a new playing field. And, of course, asking to stop is also always available. Like, hey, honey, I just need to, stop and take a breath and take a little space. That's also something that you can kind of pre-negotiate, like, this is something I need sometimes, and it's not about you. There's nothing you did that's wrong or bad. It just happens. But if you and you want to involve and invite the other person into your process of sort of reconnecting to yourself and them, even just cultivating that tool, of being able to say the word stillness and have that kind of thing happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, one thing that's coming up as you're sharing that is just the process of, there's so much about communication and trust in what you're talking about, right? And letting people show up for us. A lot of times I don't want to say that, or I don't want to do that, the person's going to get upset, but really so often people don't. They're glad to kind of know where you're at and know what's going on for you and to have that communication. And so even the practicing of that, I think, is such an important piece in what you're sharing.
Absolutely. I think part of, why I feel so very compelled to help as much as I can in this area is, I've experienced this horrible, terrible, slightly comical cycle. It's comical when you create a little space of two partners who want to be together and be intimate, and be like, well, I think they might like this. I'm going to try it.
Right.
It seems like this partner is really enjoying this to me. I'm going to pretend that I like it.
Yeah.
And the other partner's like, wow, my partner really likes it. I'll keep doing it.
Right. It's so true.
Nobody's having any fun.
Nobody's having any fun. And sex should always be fun. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness, it's so true. All right, so we're moving right along here, and I'm learning a lot. I hope everyone who's on the line has been taking good notes and tuning in and checking this out. So now we've gotten past the boundaries. We've gotten past being able to speak and kind of show up. What's the next secret? What's the second secret to everyday sexy?
So the second secret for everyday sexy is self-awareness is key. So once you've got that, capacity for, this is my container, this is what I want, and communicating that, these are the things that I want, these are the things that I don't want, what are those things? Really giving yourself an opportunity to fill your playground and to get to know yourself. Those of you who are at home listening and maybe have access to a paper or some laptop, something to write with, you could start a list for yourself. What are the things that I want? What are the things and that would be one list. Like, what are the things that I want to explore? And then another one of, like, what makes me feel sexy? You know, what are the actual elements that have me feel sexy? Is it that I just took a shower or a bath and I can really feel my skin tingling and that feels really good? Is it sometimes, you know, feeling sexy, like, well, when I eat really healthy food, or I'm nourished, or or if I feed the food to my partner with my hands, or if they feed me, like, what are the elements? What are the things that light you up, that have you feel sexy? Even asking yourself, what are your fantasies?
Right.
And, you know, it's like we talked about before, letting yourself have them. You know, letting it be okay that you want them, and not even necessarily, you know, and it's okay to draw, you know, just like desires and requests. Like desires, like, oh, you know, I want to be swept off my feet by a knight in shining armor, or like whatever. Sure. But then, you know, if your partner is like, okay, so you want me to sweep you off your, it's like, no, that's not. It's not a request. It's not like, you know, those are kind of different elements. And letting yourself have both. You know, like maybe you have a secret fantasy about, you know, pirates. It doesn't mean you necessarily want to be, you know, carried off by a pirate. It's just, you know, giving yourself, like, what are the things that are, like, in me that I don't often or always give myself permission to even, like, notice.
Right.
And there's no limit on you know, what those things can be. And I'll tell you, you know, another key factor is they don't have to make any sense.
Nice. I like that rule.
You know, like
because we can get very judgy about our desires and about our needs and what we like and, you know, what's going on here. Yeah, we can get all sorts of uptight and judgy about it.
Totally. Like I want this, but I shouldn't want that because it just doesn't make any sense, or it's weird, or whatever. I like to use the example, you know, say for whatever reason it just really turns you on to, like, eat cereal, like, while you're making love. I don't know, as an example.
As an example. Okay,
now,
yes.
So that doesn't mean that every time you eat, you know, make love, you need to eat cereal. And
Right.
You know, and it doesn't mean you need to understand why it's there either, right? Like, especially, you know, I think the important thing is, like, well, does it hurt me? Does it hurt somebody else? If the answers are no, then whatever. You know, so then it could become something of, like, especially with a trusted partner, you know, when you go through, like, that conversation together of, like, here are some things I really like, you know, and you can preface it with, like, honey, this doesn't make any sense at all. I don't understand it, and it would make me really happy if I could eat cereal once in a while we make love. Would that work for you?
Right.
You know. And so,
that's fabulous.
You know, and it doesn't have to be every time, but every once in a while I'll be like, hey, babe, you know, would it be okay if we get the cereal out tonight?
That's awesome. Right.
So,
that's good.
So self-awareness. So, and you know, part of the reason I have that come as the second, like the boundaries and the safety is the first. Self-awareness is the second thing, because until you have that sense of safety, like until you can create that sense of safety for yourself, you may not even be able to access what you want.
Right. Yeah. Well, right, because your system is so flooded with preservation that there's no room or space to imagine and tap into desire. Right? If as long as desired intimacy and sex and connection with a partner is scary, don't go there, bad things are going to happen, then even having the question of what do I like, what would feel good, just doesn't even make sense to explore. Right. So I totally get that. Yeah, I love that. So now what's the third secret as we keep moving on here? I love it.
So the third secret is play. So as in, play, playfulness. And there's two different elements that I encourage people to think about when we're talking about the play, right, the third secret. And that first element is that sexy doesn't have to be serious.
Yeah.
Agreed. I think that
yeah.
I think that a lot of people enter this space of like sexy with like, well, everything has to be serious and perfect and right, and I'm actually somewhat concerned that a lot of this like sort of perfectionism around sensuality comes out of porn.
Sure.
Like that some people, not everybody, but some people get the sense of, the sensuality from porn. And porn is like a production, right? It's been produced. It's something that you watch that's been produced, that's been edited.
Right.
So then if you're, in the act of having sex and things totally go like crazy, or like you make a weird sound, or somebody falls off the bed, doesn't get hurt, but, whatever.
Sure.
It's like, well, there's no room for that. And so, like, oh, no, that can't happen. It's like, well, yeah, it does happen.
Yeah, definitely.
But if people have this sense from, like, porn, or even, like, a sense of perfectionism, like, I need to create the perfect kind of moment together, it's like, oh, well, let's pretend you didn't just fall off the bed. It's like, well, that's silly. You did.
Right.
So how do you, like, laugh and bring, like, a sense of, like, levity and almost like a Zen approach. Like, whatever happens is what happens.
Is what happens, yeah. Yeah.
And, and what does it look like if we're just together in this, like, funny, weird human experience where strange sounds and, funny, like, I want to say misthrusts. And, like, just, like, silly, stupid stuff can happen. Like, how do we, like, create a space where it's like, okay, I don't have to judge that. I don't have to pretend it didn't happen. I don't have to, like, make this moment try and look like something that it's not.
Right.
I can just, like, breathe and connect and laugh and take myself, like, really not seriously.
I love that. Yeah, you're right, because there can be just so many pressures, right, that we start to put on ourselves about how our body looks. Can we perform? Are we pleasing? Are we doing it right? All of these things. And I think, we've been focusing, a lot on, which is perfect, on, what is happening in the bedroom. But I love, love, love that these secrets, they so apply just even to the outside world. Just your walk in being sensual, right? Being the feminine, being a woman. Can you walk out in the world and set boundaries? Can you walk out into the world and be self-aware and self-accepting? And can you walk out into the world and, not take yourself too seriously, like show up, but like get over it already if, you've got, cottage cheese or, whatever, anything with your body or yourself, like let it go already and just show up and be present and enjoy the moment. I mean, so many moments get missed because we're so caught up in our heads about what it's supposed to look like and how it's supposed to be. Yeah. So I love that you're really encouraging people to embrace the playfulness, their playfulness, and the playfulness that is, sex and being with others and intimacy, that it's not always this kind of like serious. I was going to say more even beyond porn, just like the romantic comedies, like make you feel a certain way about, how sex should look. And for both men and women, I think, there's a lot of that's being taught and shown in those little moments. So what are some of your favorite playful ways? And I don't mean you personally, but just does anything come to mind, like as you've been working with folks, ways that you've seen people embrace this playfulness? Yeah.
So one of the ways that people embrace playfulness is, maybe maybe in the intimacy, or maybe just like as an exercise for yourself in your life, to like kind of practice inhabiting different kinds of energy. So in yoga, we say that there are 72,000 energetic channels called nadis, and these are the subtle channels. These are the sort of astral tubes through which energy, life force, flows through us, and you know, and the sum total of these, you know, how these channels are flowing is like who we are, like who are we in the world, and so my approach and my belief is that, you know, if you're kind of holding yourself a certain way, you know, if in your life, for example, you're, you know, maybe in your day-to-day, you're very much of a pleaser, then, you know, that it's good to give yourself the opportunity and the sort of stretching what's possible by, you know, really discovering, well, what do I want?
Yeah.
You know, and how do I even walk differently? In one of my workshops, we do an exercise where I turn on different kinds of music. You know, I say, okay, now, you know, walk around and move as though you're someone who's in charge. And now walk around and move as though you're someone who is, you know, like, you know, exploring the world. Mm-hmm. And now walk around and move as though you're someone who's just, you know, kind of childlike and playful. Mm-hmm. And getting all those different kinds of moving into your body, into your system, I believe helps open up more of the energetic channels. Mm-hmm. Right? Because so say, like, when you're structured or when you're holding yourself with one kind of persona, if you do a different kind, that's a different way that the energy is flowing.
Right, right.
So if you give yourself the opportunity to, like, play in all these different arenas, it's like, well, what's this like? And how do I hold myself if I'm this way? That it actually opens up all of those channels more. Mm-hmm. And then when you're approaching a sensual space, it's like, you know, well, how does my energy want to move right now? And it creates this whole different realm of possibilities when you have access, you know, to different more broad elements of your energy.
Right.
You know, like, well, now I feel like doing this, and now I feel like doing this. So, so I think that really creating a space where, you know, like we were talking about before, where there's no wrong, there's no to do this wrong or bad, but just to give yourself permission to try new things and to be playful and discover different elements of yourself, different ways of being inside of you, maybe different aspects of you that would want something that the other aspect wouldn't even dream of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think just spaciousness and noticing and a levity, I think, are what things, and curiosity. Like, well, what's there?
Sure. Yeah, and knowing that, you know, that you're completely at choice. You know, like you have choices all along the way about what it is that you want to experience and what it is you want to have and how you want things to go. I love that. And I just, you know, because a lot of what I hear and underneath what you're saying is just about permission. Giving yourself permission to even just be where you are. If you're stuck, be stuck. It's okay. Just be with that. And, you know, if you're ready to really, you know, to try something new and step out into something, then be with that. And take your time, set it up, do all these steps of setting boundaries, of being aware and thinking about how you can bring play into it. But that so much we just get caught up in the attitudes, right, that we end up having that are so often, they're just historical, right? They're so tied into all sorts of junk from the past, and that we can really release from those things and just step into sensuality and sexuality that is that's pleasing and that we love, and that really, you know, so that we can enjoy our intimate relationships. So I want to thank you so much for sharing these very cool 3 secrets with us. And in just a moment, we're going to go into the Q&A part of our call. So if anyone on the line has a question, get ready for that. Before we jump into that, is there any final thought that you want to say? And then, how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. Let's see. So final thought. I really want to bring home the point and the essence of, like, ladies, it's yours. Your sensuality belongs to you. It's funny, in some of my yoga classes, if you're familiar with yoga, there's a certain way of sitting, which involves kind of like pulling your butt flesh out from underneath you, so you're no longer sitting on your back muscles. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
And a lot of people are in the class, and they kind of like nudge themselves a little bit, but won't actually touch their own bottoms. That's fine, but I can't help but notice, like, hey, that's yours. It's okay for you to do that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to just drive this home, point home, like, your sensuality is yours. It's not there for someone else. It's not there, to please someone else, unless, like, that's part of what you enjoy. If you enjoy pleasing someone else, then all for it. But it's certainly that's not the sort of primary function. The primary function is, like, this is part of your life force. This is part of your wellness. Your wholeness is to have that space in your body to, like, for energy to just move and flow, and for all the energy in those 72,000 channels to move freely. And that's part of what's going to help you feel vital in the world. Is part of what's going to help you feel excited and kind of turned on about life. Is giving yourself permission to have your own sensual channels be open to whatever degree that feels good for you.
Love it. I'm just so soaking that in. I'm like, oh, yes, 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 yes. It's nice. It's nice when we can just let that be, like, something that we own and not something that we have to use, manipulate, put on show. Yeah, I love that a lot, Marna. Thank you for that. So I know that you are working with folks one-on-one, in groups, doing workshops, and everyone listening, certainly go and check out Marna at pleasureyoga.com. And so how can people get in touch with you? And if they're curious about the work that you do and might be wanting to learn a little bit more about that and exploring working with you or attending one of your workshops, how would they get started with that?
I definitely invite everybody to come to my website there. I also invite everybody to, I'd like to offer all listeners who are listening here real time, and anybody who hears this in the next, let's say, 48 hours, to get in touch with me. I offer you a free complimentary discovery session to dive into a little bit more about what's going on for you, see if there's any questions that I can answer, resources that I can help guide you to, anything like that. So what you'll do is come on over to pleasureyoga.com. That's PLEASURE, yoga, YOGA.com, /contact. And that's my contact page. You can put in your name, your email address. Just put in the subject, Everyday Sexy, so I'll know, that you're referencing from this call. And then in the message, include a little bit about you, and that you'd like to set up a discovery call together. Again, that's my gift to you. There's no obligation. There's no commitment or anything like that. I'd love to just see if I can help be a resource to you. And so, write me a little bit about what's going on or just that you'd like to be in touch, and we'll get in touch with you and set something up.
Awesome. Yeah, and folks, definitely take Marna up on this offer, because if you're feeling any sort of blocks or hang-ups around sensuality, sexuality, this girl's in the know. So be sure to reach out and connect with her. One of the things that I would love to hear is just, I know you kind of talked about this a little bit, but, what difference has this really made for you in your life? Being tapped in to your own sensuality, being able to express it, the various journeys that you've been on and getting here today, what difference is it making for you?
Wow. I think for me, in the process of discovering and our sensuality, it's huge. I feel like the tools and skills that I've learned that apply to my sensuality have all the different parts of my life. Like you're talking, it's like, well, how do we take this and use it? And, all the different, walking around in the world. And do I have boundaries when I go out, in the street or whatever? There are some teachers who say how you do anything is how you do everything. Mm-hmm. And so the blocks and the self-judgment, I think, is a big one that I've done myself in terms of sensuality. I think, well, I should know this already, but there's something wrong with me. And it's like, well, no, I haven't learned skills and tools yet for, communicating, for knowing what I want, for how do I know what I want? Like, oh, I need to create a safety for myself before I can even get clear about what I want. Okay, it has just been completely. I've also heard it said, like, how a woman who is free in her sensuality is free everywhere.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and I don't mean free just sharing it all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
I'm free, liberated.
Yeah.
And empowered. It's true. It's like once, the skills and tools, oh, okay, I've applied this in this part. Like, oh, I can ask for what I want here too, and I can ask, in my job and what have you. So it's been a pretty instrumental aspect of my life path. People moments that empower them in their lives and whatever route of discovery they choose. Sometimes someone's in a question and they learn all sorts of, what they need to learn to ride a horse competitively or what have you. For whatever reason, this has been a really magnetic area for me. Like, what's going on there? How do I figure that out? And so I've learned a lot.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's such a, certainly as a part of the feminine, just really having that, being tuned into that which makes us women, and not to say that men don't have sensuality, they certainly do, but it is such a quality of being a woman, and that when that part of us is blocked, and just, beyond, sensuality, sexuality, us being able to really stand in our voice and do so from a place of, what we actually want, what we actually need, not in a way that's placating, people-pleasing, always looking out for others. It's one of the gifts of women that we can see it that way, the world that way so often is, all the moving parts and everybody who's involved and that. But we sometimes lose sight of ourselves in the midst of that. And that's really what I hear you saying, is that so much of this work and this evolution that has happened for you in this realm of sensuality has really just trickled over and spilled over into these other areas in your life, so that you're really showing up powerfully, communicative, setting boundaries, and aware of how you're feeling in situations and what you're wanting and able to communicate that. So I love that, and thank you for being such a model and an example to us tonight.
You're so welcome. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you. So thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to either myself or Marna. You can reach me at rachelgrantcoaching.com and Marna at pleasureyoga.com. So until next time, take good care of you, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Good night now.